The Nixon administration had a speech prepared for if the moon landing had failed, and it's chilling. Really is chilling. Imagine if they landed on the moon and were unable to lift off again. Just having to sit there and stare at Earth as they die. Yikes. I used this for a public speaking class in college and the reactions were amazing, even though I introduced it as a speech that was never given. When the Space Shuttle Challenger was destroyed, it was reported that all 7 astronauts were killed instantly. It was revealed decades later that some, if not all of the astronauts survived the initial explosion, as the cockpit cabin had enough protection to not be breached. For 2 minutes and 45 seconds, they were awake and aware, as they plummeted toward the Atlantic Ocean. We looked at this in flight school and pretty much, there's evidence to support that the crew was still running their procedures even after it was obvious shit hit the fan. They didn't die accepting their fate, they died astronauts. That's something to be admired, IMO.
This isn't really a classified document, but at one point the US government was telling people to build your own bomb shelter to protect your family. And it showed how to dig a 8-foot by 4-foot by 10-foot hole in your backyard, and if there is a nuclear threat, to get your family and go in there and cover it with a door. So obviously that wouldn't really protect anyone in the case of a nuclear attack. Later it came out that the purpose of telling families to do that was so if there was a nuclear attack on American soil, they wouldn't have to bury as many bodies because the families dug their own grave. So yeah, not classified, but along the same disturbing stuff the US government did.
There are over 50 mishaps with nuclear weapons by the U.S. Air Force in the 1950s alone. Lol, we had a plane arrive in Barksdale carrying a live nuke and nobody knew how it got on the plane. Oh, Air Force. Even scarier is that we don't know how many nukes the Soviet Union outright lost.
My previous answer to another post. His Black Vault podcast is always a good listen even if you don't buy into the UFO stuff. He doesn't hesitate to point out the bullshit from anyone whether they are believers in this stuff or not, and gives a lot of time to skeptics to put their side of the argument and treats everyone with respect. Did the site get the Reddit hug of death, or is it just me? Here's one from the Brits and the Aussies in the 50s, nuclear tests in Maralinga. Oh yeah, some Aboriginals lived nearby. https://australianmap.net, Montebello Islands. The government were going to nuke Scotland for a while I think, then they realised that was a stupid idea as Scotland is a pretty small place relatively speaking and nuked Australia instead.
Read the book, 1 Second After. It's about what happens after an EMP attack on the US. It's based on actual government studies and estimates. It is terrifying. There's a fantasy series that goes into this Emberverse where an EMP storm off the coast of Nantucket makes all gunpowder plus electricity unusable and the after effects. It starts off great and reads like alternate history, then gets into fantasy in later books, but the first book, Dies the Fire, is amazing. Operation Midnight Climax. Threat level midnight. Blurring the line between comedy and insanity. Midnight Climax sounds like a porno.
Devil Eyes. You should watch The Holy Mountain. In it they talk about knowing they will have to go to war with a country in 15 years. They make comic books and toys with a villain that looks like that other race. They also make a peacock-type medicine the same color as the skin of that race. All sorts of things to prepare kids to hate a particular races by the time they are of military age and the war is fought.